Hello and welcome to the Bhagavatam. So, as usual, I'd like to ask you a question. Is prayer the only way to connect with God? For most religions, that's pretty much what they talk about, is prayer. But did you know that prayer is only one of the 9 ways to connect with God? One. The other 8 are in this order. I'll give you the Sanskrit words first. Shravanam. This is considered most important. When people pray, they talk to God. But far more important is to listen. The process begins with listening to spiritual talks, songs, or chants about God. As in, you'll see here, the meeting between Parikshit and Shukhadeva. And in this, you'll see that Shukhadeva is listening to the great master. Parikshit is listening to Shukhadeva, as was Arjuna and Krishna. So what we learn from this is that listening is very important. And without hearing, nobody can understand the science of God. Therefore, the Vedic mantras are called Śruti. Śruti means that which is to be heard. It's not to be experimented in the laboratory. It is simply to be heard. Yes, after hearing it, you're most welcome to apply it and try it out. Then gradually, as the mind becomes quiet and the heart becomes purified of desire, we can hear the gentle voice of God guiding us from within. King Parikshit attained the perfection of human life by listening to the Srimad Bhagavatam. The second is Kirtanam. Kirtanam is talking about, singing or chanting the names and glories of God. We can chant on beads, we can sing in Kirtan, or we can read aloud the pastimes of the divine as we do on these talks. This simple act purifies us. The great sage Shukhadeva attained perfection by reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam. Then there is Vishnu Smaranam, which means remembrance. As we listen to and speak about God, we begin to remember His words, His pastimes, and those of His devotees and loved ones. Prahlad, little boy, if you've been following along in the Srimad Bhagavatam, attained perfection in this way. You'll also find that what you're listening to becomes embedded in your mind, and now the mind starts playing it back to you. You listen to junk, you put in junk, as they used to say in the old days, garbage in, garbage out. So the stuff you put into your mind is the stuff that's going to come out of it. I find that when you spend your time chanting and remembering God and listening to Him, the words now become embedded in your mind, and the mind plays them back for you. It's a wonderful experience. Pada Sevanam, serving God and His loved ones. See, love is not passive. Love is expressed as service. And Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, expressed her worship in this way, by serving. So we had Prahlad, who remembered, and then Lakshmi, who served by massaging the feet of the Lord. And then we have Archanam. This is when we worship the form of God in the form of the deity. King Prithu attained perfection in this way. Vandanam, this is when we recite hymns or mantras glorifying God. Akrura attained perfection in this way, and we're going to hear about those prayers today. And then there's what's called Dasyam, and Dasyam is becoming the servant of God and His loved ones. Hanuman attained perfection by rendering service to Ram in this way. And then we have Sakhyam, becoming a friend of God. Krishna had so many friends in Vrindavan, and Arjun received the Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna said the reason that he was speaking the Gita to him was, he said, because you are my dear friend. And finally, there's Atmanivedanam. We consider the idea of King Bali, who surrenders himself to the dwarf Vaman. Vishnu had appeared in that form just to be able to challenge the king, to take away his ego. The king was very proud of his achievements and his great glory and his kingdom. He came to take it all away. All right, with that, let's get started. Sagare So we've been talking about Akrura. Akrura was the uncle of Krishna, and he was going to pick up Krishna from Vrindavan and bring him to Mathura. Krishna was born in Gokul, grew up in Vrindavan where he had his wonderful pastimes, and now he was about 11 years old. He'd done all these amazing things while he was there. He had expressed so many ways of loving all the people who lived there. He showed them how or what love of God is. And he protected them from all the different asuras or demons who came to attack. Protected them. So, having done so many wonderful things, it was time to move on with one of his very important purposes for coming into this world, incarnating out here. And that was to annihilate all the miscreants, the troublemakers, the demons who had overrun the planet. And this is about 5,000 years ago. And we have lots of that going on today as well. And there will be a time when he shall come again. And we'll talk all about that in the 11th canto, where the predictions are there about the Kali Yuga and about the time we live in and when all of this mess gets to end and we enter into a golden age. So now Akrura, the uncle of Krishna, had come to take Krishna away from Vrindavan to Mathura. They were on the road, and on the road they stopped by a river. They're traveling very quickly on the chariot, and there was a river, Kalindi, which it's a very beautiful, pure river, purifies all sins. And that sweet water of the river was more effulgent than brilliant jewels. After Krishna touched it, so Krishna went up to the river, touched it for purification, and drank some from his hand. Then he came back to the chariot and moved it to a grove of trees. And he was there along with his brother Balaram. All the other villagers had gone ahead. Akrura, his uncle, asked the two brothers to take their seat on the chariot, and then taking their permission, he went into the Yamuna river and took his bath there. While immersing himself in the water and reciting mantras from the Vedas, Akrura suddenly saw that Balaram and Krishna were before him in the water. And he was kind of astonished. He'd just left them behind on the chariot, so how were they here in the water? He couldn't understand that. So he thought, this is not possible. So he came back out of the water and looked on the other side, and there they were, sitting in the chariot. So he took a dip again. And this time, he saw something very unusual. He saw a vision that he had in the water. And this vision was of Ananta Shesha. Ananta Shesha is represented like this. Ananta means unlimited. Shesha is having unlimited heads. This is Vishnu lying down on the bed of serpents. Now, those serpents are not just ordinary snakes or serpents. They are his confidential associates. They create a bed for him where he can lie down, even on the water. So Akrura saw this vision, and he saw not only that, but that he saw that all the different devas or demigods had come to worship Vishnu in this form. All of them. And then he understood this was a miracle that Krishna was showing him. He was showing him who he is. And all the great devas and all the saints and all the demigods were bowing their heads to this form of the Lord, who had thousands of heads and hoods and crowns, his blue garments and his fair complexion. Akrura then saw lying there the Supreme Person, who was like a dark blue cloud. He wore yellow garments, had 4 arms and reddish lotus petal eyes. His face looked attractive and cheerful, with its smiling and daring glance and lovely eyebrows, its raised nose and finely formed ears, its beautiful cheeks and reddish lips. The Supreme Lord's beautiful broad shoulders and expansive chest, and his arms were long and stout. His raised ankles reflected the brilliant effulgence emanating from the nails of his petal-like toes, which beautified his lotus feet. Adorned with a helmet and bracelets and armlets, all of which were bedecked with many priceless jewels, necklaces, ankle bells, and earrings, Supreme Lord shone with dazzling effulgence. In one hand he held a lotus flower, and on the other hand a conch shell disc and club. And on his chest were the marks of Shivasta and the brilliant Kaustubha gem and a flower garland. All around, worshipping him, were great sages, devas chanting mantras, and also in attendance were his principal internal potencies. So now Akrura seeing this is like darshan. This is the great moment of revelation, a great moment of seeing God face to face. Now he'd actually seen Krishna. He didn't realize that Krishna and Vishnu are the same, but now Krishna was showing him. You see, Vishnu is considered God because he's great, he's worshipful, he's majestic, he's fantastic in every way. And so people understand that. But Krishna was this little boy, 10, 11 years old, two-handed, beautiful, but yeah, well, can God look like that? Of course, he can look like anything he wants to look like. So the great devotee Akrura beheld all this and became extremely pleased and felt enthused with transcendental devotion. The truth is that when you have these spiritual encounters and experiences, your whole being fills with this beautiful energy. His intense ecstasy caused his bodily hairs to stand on end and tears to flow from his eyes, drenching his entire body. Sometimes if you've ever had a spiritual revelation or you've had some insight, you will notice these symptoms happening to you, this kind of ecstasy, this kind of tears flowing from your eyes. And you may wonder, what is happening? Nothing terrible happened. In fact, I had a beautiful revelation, a beautiful moment, and now there are tears in my eyes. Those tears are tears of joy. They are tears of ecstasy. And that's what Akrura was feeling right now. Somehow managing to steady himself, Akrura bowed his head to the ground and then joined his palms in supplication, and in a voice choked with emotion, very slowly and attentively, he began to pray. Now, Akrura said the following beautiful words in his prayers. And he was praying to that supreme cause of all causes. He said, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, because you are the supreme cause of all causes and the original, inexhaustible personality, Narayan. You are the cause of all causes, the elements of this cosmic manifestation, earth, water, fire, air, ether, ego, and the total material creation, as well as nature, the marginal energy, the living entities, the mind, the senses, the sense objects, and the demigods who control the affairs of the cosmos are all produced from your body. You are the supersoul. Supersoul means, the Sanskrit word is Paramatma, the great soul, who knows everything, but no one knows his transcendental form. You see, people think it's almost impossible for God to have a form, but the truth is that all the great yogis who have meditated have seen that form, have realized God within themselves. So God not only exists as the energy of the universe, not only exists in all the atoms of the creation, but also exists within us, within each of us, as the great soul, the Paramatma, the super soul. And that form in meditation can be perceived. It has been perceived by many, many yogis over the ages. That form is brilliant and effulgent by the waves of these modes of nature. So in this image you see how the Supersoul, the Paramatma, is also present within all creatures, within all animals, within all birds, within all insects, within all humans. And with this you begin to understand the sacredness of life. And that all of life, all of us, are covered by these modes of nature that they're talking about out here. We are all in illusion, thinking that I am this body, thinking that my mind is telling me the truth. My mind is what I see is what there is. But in fact, none of that is true. Behind everything we see is energy, and what we see is just an illusion. It's been proven now by science, but the great rishis of ancient time knew that. They knew that everything we're seeing is an illusion. Does that mean that we should do nothing in this world? No, it doesn't mean that. Does it mean that we should just, it's an illusion, so why bother? No, it simply means do not be attached to the illusion. Do not take the illusion to be reality. Bhagavatam says this beautiful text is meant to take us away from the illusion, is to distinguish reality from illusion. What is reality? Reality is that which is eternal. An illusion is that which is temporary. So the things of this world are all temporary. This body, the other things we have in this world, the people, our relationships, everything is temporary. That which is temporary is that which is unreal. And that which is eternal is that which is real. This is the vision of the great enlightened beings. They know and they see the soul within every one of us. They see that part of God within every one of us. And therefore they understand the eternal. And because they see the eternal, they are not troubled by the temporary. So in the temporary part of the world, there are many things that will happen. Good things will happen, bad things will happen. There will things will happen that we like, and there will be things that happen that we don't like. All of that will happen. But we need to know that none of that is lasting. None of that is significant. What is significant is our spiritual essence. What is significant is that which is eternal. So he says, you, my dear Lord, my dear Vishnu, my dear Krishna, you are beyond the influence of the modes of nature. Except for you, everyone is being carried away by the waves of these modes, by the illusions of the world. Everyone within this material world is conditioned by your illusory energy, under the impression of false identification and false possession. Everyone is transmigrating from one body to another on the path of karmic activities and their reactions. So this is the journey of life. We're going from one body to another, from childhood to youth to old age, and then death, and then coming back again into this world, going from one body to another, sometimes humans, sometimes animals, sometimes a worm. We keep going through 8,400,000 species of life. And each time we think, this is me. We think this body is me. We think that what my mind thinks is true, but none of it is. That's the great mystery. So he says, under the impression of false identification and false possession, everyone is transmigrating from one body to another on the path of karmic activities and their reactions. He says, I am no exception among these conditioned souls. I am falsely thinking myself happy in possessing my home, my wife, my children, my estate, my property and friends. In this way, I am acting as if in a dreamland, because none of these things are permanent. I am a fool to be always absorbed in thoughts of such things, accepting them as permanent truths. Now, he's a great soul, but he sees himself as a fool. You see, a real fool thinks they are great, and a really great person knows that they are a fool. So if you come across people who proclaim themselves to be great, know that they are a great fool. Because truly great people have humility. Truly great people understand that I truly know nothing. In the words of Socrates, he would say, to know that you do not know is the greatest step to knowledge. One who thinks they know is a fool because they've plateaued. They've come to the end of knowledge. But knowledge is never ending. See? One who thinks they know is dead. So it is always important to know that you do not know, to remain curious, to stay open, and to give up the false identification with what you think and what you believe and all your egoic concepts of who you think you are. I have accepted as permanent everything which is non-permanent, such as this material body, which is not spiritual and is the source of all kind of miserable conditions. Being bewildered by such concepts of life, I am always absorbed in thoughts of duality, and I have forgotten you, who are the reservoir of all transcendental pleasure. This is the mood of all the great souls, is they speak on our behalf, that we have forgotten the source of all transcendental pleasure is God. God is not the source of fear. No. God is not the one who's going to punish you and send you to hell. No. These are made up ideas. God is the reservoir of all transcendental pleasure. Now, let's talk about pleasure for a minute. Everybody in this world wants pleasure. We all want to feel good. And we want to enjoy the things of the world because they give us pleasure. But have you noticed that those things are very fleeting? I mean, you can have a nice meal. That meal might last you, 15 minutes, a half an hour? I don't know. Not long. And then, can you keep eating? And can you keep eating? And can you keep eating for the whole day? Not likely. You'll probably get really sick. So many other things are pleasurable. People find sex pleasurable. Yes, it's pleasurable, but how long does it last? A few minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. That's sort of the average for most people. And then you spend hours trying to get to that point, and then it's gone in a second, in a few minutes rather. We want lasting pleasure, lasting enjoyment, lasting happiness. None of us wants just, to be shortchanged with something that is fleeting. That transcendental pleasure is what we've been seeking. Transcendental happiness, that's what we've been seeking. Why is it because it transcends this world. It is not of this world. It lies within us. It lies in our connection with God. And yet it is what we've been seeking. We've been seeking for it in the world. We've been seeking for it in people. We've been seeking for it in our body and with our mind. But the real thing is somewhere else. It's in our soul. That's why the soul is called Sat Chit Ananda. Ananda means bliss. It is the reservoir of bliss. And when it connects with the Supreme Soul or God, it now taps into infinite bliss. That infinite bliss is what is being talked about out here. And that infinite bliss is something we all deserve and all have a birthright to have. But we have forgotten where it is. And we're looking in the wrong place, just like a deer who's in the desert, or whatever animal might be in the desert, or a human for that matter, looking at a mirage and chasing it. Mirage, there is no water. There is only death. So he continues, I am bereft of your transcendental association, being just like a foolish creature who leaves a watering hole covered by water-nourished vegetation and goes in search of water in the desert. So he puts it so beautifully. It's like a person who's at a watering hole, right? Who's got everything, but leaves that which they've got where they're at and goes running off somewhere else into the desert looking for water there. The happiness we've been seeking, the joy, the pleasure, the fun, the wisdom, the everything we've been seeking, youth, eternality, all of that was right here within us. And we've left behind that which was within us because no one showed us how to access it. And we've gone chasing happiness in the world. The pursuit of life, liberty, and that pursuit is the illusion. The conditioned souls want to quench their thirst, but they do not know where to find water. They give up the spot where there is actually a reservoir of water and run into the desert where there is no water. He says, I am completely incapable of controlling my mind, which is now driven by the unbridled senses and is attracted by karmic activities and their results. He's making such a powerful point here. I am completely incapable of controlling my mind, which is driven by my unbridled senses. So what does unbridled mean? It's like when you have a horse. When you put the bridle on the horse, that horse now you can pull the reins. But if you didn't have the bridle and you didn't have the reins, well, you couldn't control the horse. See? So the unbridled senses first need to be bridled. There's a sense of discipline that needs to be there before you control your mind. It starts from the external. What do we do to be able to control the mind? Well, it starts off by just learning how to control. Now, the problem is we're busy trying to control the world. We're trying to control other people. We're trying to control our environment. We're trying to make our home pretty. We're trying to make ourselves look good. We're trying to control the external world while our internal world is in utter and sheer chaos. It begins here, internally. We have to control the mind. How do you control the mind? You first control the senses. You choose where you're going to focus your senses. So, for example, in our case, we would avoid certain kinds of foods. For example, foods that are like meat or fish or eggs. We would avoid foods that are non-sattvic, which have got onions and garlic and things like that. So why do we do all that? It's about controlling the senses. It's not that you can stop everything for the senses, but you can start limiting where they go. Senses want everything. They want to eat, drink, and be merry. No, we control that. We recognize that there's no ultimate joy in that. I have to learn to control my mind, and it begins by controlling my senses. So therefore we control, instead of putting intoxicants into our body, instead of putting all kinds of unhealthy foods into our body, we restrict ourselves to that which is healthy for the body, for the mind, and for the soul. Intoxicants are not healthy for the soul, by the way. They only create a delusion of some kind of happiness, which only leads to more misery. So in this way, we control our senses, we control our mind, and then we can begin the process of controlling our mind. And the process for that is mantra. Man means mind, and tra means to deliver, to free the mind. So mantra is, like in the early times, they would chant Om, Aum, Om. And then we were given the Hare Krishna mantra. This mantra is known as the mantra for this particular time that we live in, the Kali Yuga. And in this time, it is the most powerful means of controlling the mind. I feel it every time when I chant. My mind clears up. And it creates a very deep, grounded feeling within. And so one is now no longer attracted by karmic activities. What are karmic activities? Those are egoically driven activities. I want to look good. I want to possess wealth. I want to become famous. I want to enjoy the opposite sex. I want to enjoy my senses. I want to enjoy. But all that enjoyment is binding me to this world. Those are karmic activities. The same enjoyment, when it is done for the pleasure of the divine, for the pleasure of God, frees you from karma rather than binding you into this world. That's the difference. Then he continues, therefore my intelligence is very miserly. See, because I'm attracted to my senses, because I cannot control my mind, because I am engaging in karmic activities of sensual enjoyment, my intelligence is very miserly, meaning I'm using my intelligence in the wrong way. Your lotus feet cannot be appreciated by any person in the conditioned state of material existence, but somehow or other I have come to you. This idea of the lotus feet of God really talks about a state of surrender. It's talking about a place where we begin to submit ourselves. He says, I consider this to be your causeless mercy upon me, that I am now able to understand you. He says, you can act in any way because you are the supreme controller. I can thus understand that when a person becomes eligible to be delivered from the path of repeated birth and death, it is only by your causeless mercy that he comes nearer to your lotus feet and becomes attached to serving you. And these lotus feet are so attractive that one who engages in serving them becomes a devotee of God. He says, my dear Lord, your transcendental eternal form is full of knowledge. God has a form. Did you know that? Satchit Ananda. When he comes to this world, he says, I come in my original transcendental form. That form is not subject to birth or death or old age or disease. It cannot be killed. It cannot be destroyed in any way. It cannot be hurt. It cannot be harmed. It does not bleed. Because it is not physical. It is non-physical. It says, my Lord, your transcendental eternal form is full of knowledge. Simply by concentrating one's mind upon your form, one can understand everything that is, everything that be, because you are the original source of all knowledge. You are the supreme, powerful, possessing all kinds of energies. You are the supreme Brahman, the supreme person, supreme controller, and master of all material energies. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you because you are the resting place of all creation. You are the all-pervading supreme personality of Godhead, and you are also the supreme soul residing in everyone's heart and giving direction to act. And now, my Lord, I am completely surrendered unto you. Please give me your protection. You know, the interesting thing is, we think that we are free in this world, but are we really? What if the sun stopped shining, or the rain stopped falling, or oxygen turned to carbon dioxide or sulfur? What if our temperature, body temperature, went up 6 to 7 degrees? In the outside might go up much more, but what if our body temperature, see, our body is always regulating our temperature. What if it went up by 6 to 7 degrees? Instead of being 98 degrees Fahrenheit, it went up to 104, 5, 6. What would happen to us? What would happen if the temperature didn't come down, or our heart stopped beating, or our lungs stopped pumping? We would die instantly. We are completely dependent on this body to be alive. We are dependent on nature to be alive. And yet we believe that we are free, that we can do anything, that we can be anything, we can have anything. But no matter what we have, we can't take it with us when we die. But no matter what you do, that doing will bind you into this world through karma. So this illusion, he says, of independence creates our bondage to this world. The illusion of independence creates our bondage to the world. The day we recognize our dependence on nature, on God, we enter into a world of gratitude. And when we are truly grateful, we can understand that everything was given to us. Every heartbeat was given to us. Every breath was given to us. Every moment we are alive is a gift from God. We need to ask, God, why was all this given to me when I did nothing to deserve it? You have blessed me so much. What can I do for you? How can I serve you? This attitude of gratitude, this feeling of humility, this desire to serve and please God, to become aligned with or one with the will of God, that is surrender. Surrender is not defeat. It is awakening and realizing the ultimate truth. With that, our story progresses a little further. So Akrura comes out of the water. He'd been bathed. He was in the water. He'd had this amazing vision of Vishnu and all the devas worshipping him. Then he realized that was no different than Krishna, who is sitting on the chariot. So Krishna, who was sitting there, withdrew his form, withdrew the form that he had just revealed in the water, just as an actor winds up his performance. So Krishna gave this revelation to Akrura and then withdrew it. Beautiful analogy, just as an actor winds up his performance. When Akrura saw the vision disappear, he came out of the water and quickly finished his various ritual duties and then returned to the chariot, astonished. Krishna asked Akrura, have you seen something wonderful on the earth, in the sky, or in the water? So tricky. He's asking him. From your appearance, we think you have. Akrura said, whatever wonderful things the earth, sky, or water contain, all exist in you. Since you encompass everything, when I am seeing you, what have I not seen? And now that I am seeing you, O Supreme Absolute Truth, in whom reside all amazing things on the earth, in the sky, and in the water, what amazing things could I see in this world? What remains to be seen in this world, he's saying. Now that I've seen you, I don't need to see anything else. With these words, Akrura began driving the chariot onward. And at the end of the day, he arrived in Mathura with Krishna and Balaram. Now, wherever they passed along the road, the village people came forward and looked upon the two sons of Vasudeva with great pleasure. Two sons meaning Krishna and Balaram. Here's a picture of them. So everyone was looking at them with complete astonishment, complete amazement, even as they passed the different villages along the way. The village people came forward and looked upon the two sons of Vasudeva with great pleasure. In fact, the villagers could not withdraw their eyes from them. That's how beautiful Krishna is. That's how beautiful God is. He is the ultimate, most beautiful of all beings. Just try to imagine for yourself, if you came across the most beautiful being in the entire universe, if you came across that incredible form of beauty, what would happen to you? Could you get your eyes off? Could you stop looking? Would you get distracted and go back on your phone? Probably not. Now, King Nanda and the other residents of Vrindavan, that's great. Nanda is Krishna's father, actually his stepfather. Having reached, so they'd already reached Mathura ahead of the chariot of Krishna and Balaram and Akrura. They had stopped at a garden on the outskirts of the city to wait for Krishna and Balaram. After joining Nanda and the others, the Supreme Godhead Krishna, the controller of the universe, took humble Akrura's hand in his own and smiling, he said, "Take the chariot and enter the city ahead of us, then go home. After resting here a while, we shall go see the city." Now, Akrura wasn't willing to leave. He says, "Oh, Master, without the two of you, I shall not enter Mathura. I am your devotee. It is not fair for you to abandon me since you are always affectionate to your devotees." So now he's trying to kind of manipulate the situation. "Come, let us go to my house." Akrura is saying, "Come to my home with your elder brother Balaram, the cowherd man, and your companions. O best of friends, O transcendental Lord, in this way, please grace my house with its real master." That is not me, that is you. You, that is your home. And that is the way a person who understands the nature of reality thinks, that nothing belongs to me. Everything is yours. Everything is yours, O God. You have given it to me. I am taking care of it on your behalf, but nothing is mine. No one is mine. If you understand this one simple thing, that nothing is mine and no one is mine, if you then understand that even this body is not me, and this mind is not me, this ego is not me, that all this is made up, you will have gotten rid of the two legs that are holding you into this world. The legs of I and mine. I, me, and mine. Let's add 3 in there, okay? I is this physical identity that you have. Me is perhaps the personality. Mine is all the stuff that I have. And as soon as you let go of these, you're free. You've put down your baggage. You've put down the burden. And now you're free. And in that moment, you're able to understand who you are. Because when you have this illusion, you cannot understand who you are. You have identified with the world. And it's very hard to let go of something you've identified with. You know, when people join a certain religion or they join a certain group, political party, they become identified with an ideology. Now, the moment you're identified with an ideology, you become subservient to that ideology. Let's say that you liked a few things about a particular political party. Now, once you're part of that tribe, you're part of that group, you start accepting everything about that ideology because that's now your tribe. Now that's your group of people. You become in a funnel. You become in a, it's like that whole, you buy into the whole shebang, the whole thing. And that's why it's better to think for yourself. It's better not to get caught up in this tribal mentality. We like it because it gives us a sense of belonging. But it doesn't give us the truth. If you want the truth, then you have to stay free of all the tribalism that you see around you, whether that's in the form of religion, whether that's in the form of politics, whether that's in the form of nationality. I am simply an ordinary householder attached to household duties, so please purify my home with the dust of your lotus feet. By that act of purification, my forefathers and the demigods will all become satisfied. He expresses now his desire. He says, by bathing your feet, the exalted King Bali attained not only glorious fame and unequaled power, but also the final destination of all saintly persons. The water of the river Ganga has purified the three worlds, having become transcendental by bathing your feet. Shiva accepted that water on his head, and by that water's grace, the sons of King Sagar attained to heaven. O Lord of Lords, Master of the universe, O you whose glories it is most pious to hear and chant, O best of the Yadus, O you whose fame is recounted in excellent poetry, O Supreme Lord Narayan, I offer my obeisances unto you. So Krishna said, look, I really appreciate this. Thank you so much. I will come to your house with my elder brother, but first I will satisfy my friends and well-wishers by killing the enemy of the Yadus. So he had come for a purpose. Party can happen later, right? He'd come for a purpose, and that purpose was the King Kans had imprisoned his parents. King Kans had been tormenting thousands of people all over the world. King Kans wanted to kill Krishna. So Krishna said, the time has come. I've come here. I've come to confront him. Once I have dealt with him, I shall come to your house and visit you. Akrura then entered the city with a heavy heart. He informed King Kans of the success of his mission, because the king had sent him to bring Krishna to Mathura, because the king's plan was to kill Krishna. And so he informed the king of the success of his mission, and then Akrura went home. Now, Krishna desired to see Mathura. So towards the evening, he took his brother Balaram and the cowherd boys with him and entered the city. They saw Mathura with its tall gates and household entrances made of crystal. Think of this city, this incredible city. And it no longer looks like that. It's there. I've been there to Mathura. It's near Vrindavan. It's about a couple hours from Delhi, New Delhi in India. But Mathura at that time, 5,000 years ago, it says, it had tall gates and the entrances of homes were made with had crystal on them. It had immense archways and the doors made of gold. Its granaries and other storehouses of copper and brass, and its impregnable moats. Beautifying the city were pleasant gardens and parks. The main intersections were fashioned of gold, and there were mansions with private pleasure gardens, along with gilded halls and many other buildings. Mathura resounded with the calls of peacocks and pet turtle doves, who sat in the small openings of the lattice windows and on the gem-studded floors, but also on the columned balconies and on the ornate rafters in front of the houses. Those balconies and rafters which were adorned with precious stones. All the royal avenues and commercial streets were sprinkled with water. So they didn't tar the roads, but they sprinkled them with water, as were the side roads and courtyards. Then they perfumed the roads. The pathways would be pleasant smelling. There were flower garlands everywhere, and newly grown sprouts, parched grains, and rice grains had been scattered about everywhere. Gracing the houses' doorways were elaborately decorated pots filled with water, which were bedecked with mango leaves smeared with yogurt and sandalwood paste and encircled by flower petals and ribbons. Near the pots were flags, rows of lamps, bunches of flowers, and trunks of banana and betel nut trees. We're talking about an ancient civilization who lived differently than we do. They didn't pave their roads with tar and concrete. They didn't build buildings the way we do now, skyscrapers. They were in touch with nature. They were in touch with the beauty of life, and they reaped the bounty of the earth. Now, as Krishna and Balaram were entering Mathura, the women of Mathura hurriedly assembled and went forth to see the two sons of Vasudeva as they entered the city on the king's road, surrounded by their cowherd boyfriends. Now, keep in mind, Krishna and Balaram were extremely attractive, beautiful, a sight to behold, and they'd been hearing about them. These ladies had been hearing about them. And so when they heard that Krishna and Balaram were now entering the city, they all rushed out. Some of the women eagerly climbed the roofs of their homes to see Krishna and Balaram. The houses might be a couple of stories tall, not much more. Some of the ladies put their clothes and ornaments on backwards. Others forgot one of their earrings or ankle bells, and others applied makeup to one eye but not the other. Those who were taking their meals abandoned their meal and went out without finishing their bath or massages. Women who were sleeping at once rose when they heard the commotion, and mothers who were breastfeeding their infants simply put them aside. The lotus-eyed Krishna, smiling as he recalled his bold pastimes, captivated these ladies' minds with his glances. He walked with the gait of a lordly elephant, creating a festival for their eyes with his transcendental body, which is the source of pleasure for everyone. The ladies of Mathura had repeatedly heard about Krishna, and thus as soon as they saw him, their hearts melted. They felt honored that he was sprinkling upon them the nectar of his glances and broad smiles. Taking him into their heart through their eyes, they embraced him, the embodiment of all ecstasy. And as their bodily hairs stood on end, they forgot the unlimited distress caused by his absence. You know, sometimes people tell me, I feel so alone. I feel lonely. We feel lonely because the most important person is missing from our lives. We think it's that person we need to meet. We feel it's that soulmate. We feel it's that lover. We feel it's that partner who we wish we would find. But that soulmate, that eternal lover, the one who we will live with happily ever after, that is God. And here is the experience that they're having. So try to understand, we've a particular template within us, a particular inkling, a particular longing within our heart, within our soul. That longing is for this eternal divine love. And Krishna is the source of that divine love. And now here he was in front of them. Krishna and Balaram, Krishna and his brother is no different than Krishna. Their lotus faces blooming with affection. The ladies who had climbed to the roofs of the mansions rained down showers of flowers upon Balaram and Krishna. The Brahmins, the priests standing by along the way, honored the two brothers with gifts of yogurt, barley corn, pots full of water, garlands, fragrant substances such as sandalwood paste, and other items of worship. The women exclaimed, "Oh, what severe austerities the gopis must have performed to be able to see Krishna and Balaram, who are the greatest source of pleasure for all mankind." Now, at this point, a washerman, a dhobi as we call them in India, they wash the clothes for people, right? He approached Krishna and Balaram, and he's coming along the way, right? And he had been dyeing some clothes, and Krishna asked him for the finest laundered garments that he had. So the finest garments that he had washed and which were, ready to be worn. Nice, really, he wanted the best of clothing. Krishna said, "Please give us suitable garments for the two of us who certainly deserve them. If you grant this charity, you'll undoubtedly receive the greatest benefit." Requested by the Supreme Lord, who is perfectly complete in all respects, that arrogant servant of the king, because he was working for King Kamsa, that washerman, he became angry and replied insultingly, "You impudent boys, you're accustomed to roaming the mountains and forests, and yet you would dare put on such clothes as these? These are the king's possessions you are asking for. Fools, get out of here quickly. Don't beg like this if you want to stay alive. When someone is too bold, the king's men arrest him and kill him and take all his property." He lives in fear, doesn't he? As the washerman thus spoke brazenly, Krishna became angry, and then with a mere flick of his fingertips, he separated the man's head from his body. The washerman's assistants all dropped their bundles of clothes and fled down the road, scattering in all directions. Krishna then took the clothes. It has also been said that Krishna gave moksha or liberation to every one of these kind of people that he killed. All of them. Every one of them. was given freedom and liberation from the cycle of birth and death. Krishna and Balaram then put on these wonderful garments that especially pleased them, and then Krishna distributed the remaining clothes amongst his friends, the cowherd boys, and left some scattered on the ground. Then a weaver came forward, with great affection, nicely adorned their attire with cloth garments of various colors. Krishna and Balaram looked resplendent, each in his own unique, wonderfully ornamented outfit. They resembled a pair of young elephants, one white, another black. White was Balaram and black was Krishna, decorated for a festive occasion. Pleased with the weaver, Krishna blessed him that after death, he said to the weaver, you will achieve liberation and you will attain a form just like mine. And that while you are in this world, you will enjoy supreme opulence, physical strength, influence, memory, and sensory vigor. This was the blessing. The boys then went to the house of a garland maker. His name was Sudama. And when Sudama saw them, he at once stood up and then bowed down, placing his head to the ground. After offering them seats and bathing their feet, Sudama worshipped them and their companions with garlands and pan. I don't know if you had pan, it's amazing. Sandalwood paste, put that on their head, their body, and other presentations. Sudama said, my birth is now sanctified and my family free of contamination, of karma. And now that you have both come here, my forefathers, the demigods, the great sages, are all certainly satisfied with me. He said, you are the ultimate source of this entire universe. To bestow sustenance and prosperity upon this realm, you have descended to this world. You are the well-wishing friends and the Paramatma, the supreme soul of the entire universe. And you regard everyone with unbiased vision. Although you reciprocate your devotees' loving worship, you always remain equally disposed towards all living entities. Please order me, your servant, to do whatever you wish. To be engaged by you in some service is certainly a great blessing for anyone. Sudama could understand what Krishna and Balaram wanted. With great pleasure, he presented them with garlands of fresh, fragrant flowers. Beautifully adorned with these garlands, Krishna and Balaram were delighted, and so were their companions. They then offered the surrendered Sudama, who was bowing down before them, whatever benediction he desired. Sudama chose unshakable devotion for Krishna, the supreme soul of all existence. He could have had anything. He could have got anything he wanted. But he said, no, I want unshakable devotion for you. I want friendship with all your devotees, with all your loved ones, and transcendental compassion for all living beings. This is a guy who made garlands for a living, okay? And so much wisdom. Not only did Krishna grant Sudama these benedictions, but he also awarded him strength, long life, fame, beauty, and ever-increasing prosperity for his family. Then Krishna and his elder brother took their leave. So with that, we end today's reading of the Bhagavatam. I'd like to know if you have any questions. What did you think of all this? Did you make any sense of it? And do you have questions? Did you think some of this might be, I don't know, attractive to you or plausible or difficult or whatever else it is? Share with me. Tell me. What did you think? We are here discussing divine love and its many different facets. I have an entire playlist, an entire podcast called the Divine Love Podcast. Please look it up. It's on my channel, and you'll find there the most amazing relationships. You know, the thing is, we all want relationship, but we don't know what. We have this desire for the most incredible relationship of all, and that relationship is here with the divine, with God. We think God is just some energy, but you can't have a relationship with energy. We think the divine is just some, light, but you can't make love to light. But here you see Krishna, the supreme source of everything, incarnating into this world, taking form, showing us his divine spiritual form, and all these people incredibly in love with Krishna, and with him finding all the different aspects of love. Some are his friends, some are lovers, some treat him as a child, some have a parental love, others want to serve. But in every way, he's relating to them as his own and giving them whatever they desire. Because once you have the treasure house, You have the person who owns the treasure house. You have all the treasure as well. But the way to get that treasure is to want nothing else. When I say, Krishna, I want only you. God, I want only you. When that desire becomes unmotivated and uninterrupted, then it is pure. But if I want something from God, oh, I'm come to worship you, God, give me this, give me that, then you're treating God as if he's some Santa Claus or he's your order supplier or someone who's going to give you whatever you want. No, that is coming with selfish interest. Others want liberation. Oh, they come to spirituality. But what do they really want? The world is full of suffering. I want freedom from this suffering. There's still a desire. Even that is a desire. I want to be free so that I can be free of suffering. So I no longer have to get old or diseased or die. I no longer have to suffer all the pains and troubles and struggles of this world. That too is desire. Beyond that is bhakti. Bhakti is divine love. That divine love is unmotivated. And for it to be pure, it needs to be unmotivated. And when it is unmotivated, and when it is uninterrupted, it becomes pure. And in that pure state, God becomes yours and you become his. You are mine and I am yours. And that is the beauty of this state. He gives you all of himself and you give him all of yourself. And that state of surrender is a state of oneness. Oneness with the divine, oneness with God, oneness with Krishna. To be one, as Christ said, I and the Father are one, it doesn't mean that they are the same. No. It means that you have become aligned. You are aligned with the divine. You are aligned with God. And you are therefore one. One in intent, one in purpose, one in every way. You're walking in the same direction. All right, any questions? All right, I hope you're enjoying these talks. And I have, as I said, more than 100 videos now on this very topic. Please look it up, the Divine Love Podcast. It's on my channel of Spiritual Wisdom Academy. And I look forward to hearing from you. If you haven't had thought of any questions right now, perhaps you can go and watch something and write something in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to connect with you. I'd love to know you more. And I look forward to your inputs. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night. Take care.